Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today's recipe, we're going to get to it. I would say that if you're someone who is easily offended, you might want to look away. This is going to get salty. I try to keep this channel super positive. I try to show you methods that you can take into your own kitchen and make recipes your own. Methods to give you the confidence to make any recipe. I want you to succeed in the kitchen. That's my whole goal. I'm not trying to do perfect technique. I'm just trying to show you that, you know, anybody can get in the kitchen and make it happen. But I also know, and I come across it quite a bit, that a lot of recipe writers and publications work very hard, or whether they work hard at it or not, they present recipes in a way that they are very difficult to read. They put up roadblocks. They overcomplicate them. They try to make something into something that it isn't. Today we're making a cookie. Today we are making a cookie that any 10-year-old should be able to step into the kitchen and make. Simple, really simple molasses spice cookie. I'm starting out with browning some butter. So I've got some butter here on a pot, sort of medium-high heat. The butter's going to melt. It's going to start to foam, and you're going to get to a point where the foaming stops. It's going to go silent. As soon as it goes silent, you're going to start to smell the butter browning. It's going to get a nutty flavor, and you're going to know at that point that you've browned the butter. What's happening is you're melting the butter. The fats are separating from the milk solids, and the milk solids are what is about to brown. If I was making clarified butter, I would melt the butter and then I would let it cool down again, and the fat would be separate from the milk solids, and you'd be able to take your clarified butter and use it somewhere else. And the clarified butter has a very high smoke temperature. It's not going to burn as easily because you've removed the milk solids. In this instance, we want the milk solids in here. We want them to brown to bring a nutty flavor to the rest. So while that's happening, I'm going to throw up the recipe here, kind of like doing the weather. This is the original recipe, and this is what I'm talking about. There are a couple of publications and websites and recipe writers that do this over and over and over and over and over again. This particular recipe is from a recipe writer who is beloved, and I'm probably going to get taken to task for this. She is beloved. People love her. They love her books. She has tons of cookbooks. She's won all kinds of awards from places that give awards for cookbooks. And this appears on a website that I look at not as a cooking website, but a website whose sole purpose is to sell you expensive kitchen gear. Anyway, so we look at this recipe. Well, it's a cookie. I'm watching the butter here. Yeah, the butter is foaming. We can hear it. Keep a very close watch on it at this point. You can see it's still butter colored. And what's happening is we're hearing the water that's in the butter, somewhere between 10 to 15% water, is boiling out. And that's the sound. And as soon as the water boils out, the temperature will rise to the point that the milk solids will start to cook, caramelize, and burn, essentially. So at this point, there's no chance that anything's going to burn because there's still water in there. But as soon as the water's gone, it'll get silent, and then it'll happen really quickly. Okay, here we go. It's getting quiet. The sound has changed. And it's just starting to go brown. I don't know if the camera's catching that. It's just starting to go brown. Okay, it's silent, and as you can just drag the spatula through, it's kind of hard because there's foam on top, but you can see underneath that it's brown, and I can get the nutty smell. Time to take that off the heat. Not only off the heat, I want to get it out of the pot, because the pot is still hot, and it's going to continue to cook that butter, and it'll just get browner. And if you get it, it's sometimes called burnt butter, but if you get to the point where it's burnt, it's bitter. Burnt butter's bitter. So we don't want that to happen. Now, I'm going to put that in here. We just want this to cool kind of to room temperature. If it's too hot, it will affect the cookies later on. A note about this. In the instructions for this recipe, it talks about how you want to clarify and brown the butter. If you're clarifying the butter, you're removing the milk solids, and you can't brown it. Clarifying and browning, two different things that cannot happen. You do melt the butter in order to clarify it, and you also melt the butter to brown it, but you're not clarifying to brown it, because if you clarify it, you can't brown it because you've removed the milk solids. We'll get back into that. Okay, so let's go back to the recipe while this is cooling. On the surface, list of ingredients calls for 150 grams or 2.5 tablespoons or 1 stick plus 2.5 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Overly complicated, but okay, we'll go with it. We'll leave that for a moment. The next one is the biggie. 38 grams or 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon. So 2 tablespoons plus 1 teaspoon. I've got it written here because it's just so complicated. Or 3/4 of a large egg. So in the recipe, they want you to crack this egg into a jug and take out 1/4 of it so that you get 38 grams of egg. The next one is even worse. 204 grams. I don't use a scale for much in the kitchen, but nobody who cooks in a country where a scale is a given and a scale is used all the time and they cook in metric, nobody is writing a recipe for 204 grams of flour. And it gets worse. Or 1 3/4 cups minus 1 tablespoon of lightly spooned into the cup and leveled off bleached all-purpose flour. So if you don't have a scale, they're expecting you to do 1 3/4 of a cup and then take out a tablespoon of flour. Asinine. But wait, it gets worse. 8.2 grams of baking soda. Really? 8.2 grams of baking soda? So I'm going to assume, this is an American publication, so I'm going to assume that most Americans who would have a scale in their kitchen probably have a kitchen scale like this that they got at the store at the mall, probably. This kitchen scale is not accurate enough to do 0.2 of a gram. It's not. It's gram accurate, plus or minus a gram, but not to 0.2 of a gram. The only people out there who are watching this who might have a scale accurate to 0.2 of a gram are pharmacists, drug dealers, and maybe home brewers. I have one in the basement in the brewery because I do use certain salts to adjust the mineral content of the water when I brew. It is down to 0.1 gram accurate. Anyway, and then they completely abandoned the scale for the next ingredients: 3/8 of a teaspoon, 3/4 of a teaspoon, 3/8 of a teaspoon, 3/8 of a teaspoon. So, I don't know how many people have 1/8 of a teaspoon measuring spoons in their house. Most of mine only go down to 1/4 teaspoon. So 3/8 of a teaspoon is difficult. So what I've done is I've looked at this recipe and I've said, okay, I'm going to use a whole egg because I expect that you want to use a whole egg. If they wanted you to use less than a large egg, then why not say 1 medium egg? But I want to use a whole egg. So what I've done is I've gone back and I've scaled everything else to even numbers. 204 grams. Nobody needs 204 grams. This is just an example of and I don't know which. example, or it could be combined to all of the examples. This is somebody who is trying to project themselves as an expert doing the perfect thing. And if you're not doing it to the 0.2 of a gram, you're not doing it right. It's a roadblock. It's gatekeeping. It's telling you that you're not adequate, that you're not good enough to do this recipe. This is a recipe that any 10-year-old should be able to do. Or it could be somebody who is so desperate to use a scale, but doesn't know how to scale a recipe to a scale, or they're not willing to leave behind the cup, the volume measure, or they just don't understand that rounding is part of life in baking, and that being 0.2 of a gram or saying you need 204 grams of flour isn't that important in the kitchen. It just is not. You are going to get consistent results using a measuring cup. You are going to get great results using a measuring cup. And this sort of thing, this is just assholery to me, that someone would publish this and try to pretend that this is the way that you're supposed to cook. I absolutely reject this. And there's so much of this going on. And it's, truth be told, it's always been that way. You know that I have a fairly large collection of old cookbooks going back to the 1600s. This thing has always happened. It really has always happened, but it has accelerated to the point where some people just think this is the way it's supposed to be done, and it isn't. I want you to know it isn't. I want you to look at a recipe like this and say, fuck that. I don't need to do that. I can round all of this out and I can make a great cookie. Okay, rant mostly over. We're going to make the recipe. I've got 1 3/4 cup of flour. To that, I'm going to add baking soda, salt, cloves, ginger, and cinnamon. Okay, so am I way off base? I just don't understand who a recipe like this is for. I don't understand why people would gravitate to a recipe that just is so convoluted. Like, I just don't get it. This type of recipe does not help anyone get in the kitchen and learn how to bake or cook. Okay, so we've got the brown butter. Next, I'm going to take the sugar and put that in, and we're going to mix those two together. I'm going to put the egg in now. So I'll get the egg in there. And I'm also going to carefully measure in the molasses. So this whipping part is super, super important. I have whipped this pretty hard. It is a light and fluffy mixture. It looks really good. I've scraped down the bowl a couple of times because the beater doesn't scrape very well. And I've got a really good looking mixture here. There's no way that you can overbeat this part of the mixture. You want to get some air into it. You want to make it light and kind of fluffy. And I think we're there. So we're going to add in the flour at this point. Now, after I get the flour in, the recipe, rambles into this strange thing. I'm supposed to break it into I'm supposed to preheat the oven for an hour and a half. No, 30 minutes. I'm supposed to preheat the oven for at least 30 minutes before I bake. I'm supposed to break the dough into 2 balls of 281 grams each and put in the fridge for an hour or so. And then I take it out and I measure the dough into a 1.5-inch diameter cookie scoop and level it off with a small metal spatula. And these should be cookies that are 23 grams each. I'm going to finish putting in the flour, mix it together. I'm going to stick the bowl in the fridge for half an hour or so, and then we'll shape it into cookies. I just don't get this. I don't understand. I don't understand why they want to stop people from trying to cook. I want you to make these cookies. I've already tasted what's in there, and the brown butter is amazing. Like, it's amazing tasting brown butter, molasses, and spice. It's going to be incredible. We just don't need that. We don't need that. Okay, clean spatula because I'd already licked the other one. We'll get this, I'll give it one last mix by hand and then stick it in the fridge, and I'll go and have a cup of tea and cool down and regain my composure. Okay. I think these have chilled enough. So I've got a scoop and I've got a bowl of sugar. This is just straight up regular sugar. Sometimes I like to roll in regular sugar and then in icing sugar to have both on the outside and put it on. Sometimes it's just one or the other. Sometimes I'll use a superfine sugar. I'm really not all that concerned about what kind of sugar I put on the outside. It's all good. So use the one that you like. So we roll it into a ball and then into the sugar, coat in the sugar, just like that, and onto the baking tray. I'm just scooping it out. I'm not scraping it off with a little spatula. I'm not weighing them. I'm just making cookies for after dinner, sitting on the couch with a cup of tea. I'm not all that concerned if they're exact. I mean, if that's your thing, go right ahead. Do that. Oven's preheated. Doesn't take that long for this oven to preheat. The recipe goes into the whole rigmarole of, you know, middle rack and turning the cookie sheet around halfway through the baking so that you get an even bake. Again, if your oven needs that level of care, then do that. I get that. This one doesn't need it. This one, I've said this a few times because I get questions about this in the comment section all the time. This oven has great temperature control all through the oven. It is a convection oven, but I never really use the convection setting unless I'm roasting a chicken or a turkey or a roast beef or something like that. For baking cookies like this, I just have it on the regular bake. But the thing is, it has two fans inside, and the fans, when it's on convection, run constantly at a really high speed, moving lots of air around. But on regular baking, they're on a bit of a timer. And so the fan at the top will come on at a really low speed for 30 seconds. And then it'll shut off for 2 minutes. And then it'll come on for 30 seconds. And then it'll shut off for 2 minutes. And what it's doing in that on-off cycle is it's moving enough air around inside the oven, not to create a convection effect, but to create an incredible even temperature throughout the oven. So I just put them on the lowest rack and forget about them. But if you need to move them around, that's where you need to know your own oven and make your own decisions. So one more to go and into the oven for about 10 minutes. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, France. Is it time for the supper?
Nope, sausage is not ready yet.
Sausage is not.
A little bit longer.
Then how about we have some cookies?
Okay. So, Julie's heard me swearing around the house for the last few days about this cookie recipe.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
I didn't want to be so hard on it, but it was so aggressively onerous in the way that it was written. Just aggressively daring you not to make it because you're not good enough.
Well.
And yet, okay.
Very nice cookie. Mm-hmm.
So, great flavor. Good mix between the ginger and the brown butter. Mm-hmm. There's no need to make this cookie based on that recipe. Use the recipe that I have updated. You don't need to worry about 3/4 of an egg. 8.2 grams of baking soda. 204 grams of flour. That's just idiotic.
Has he been like this the whole time?
I know.
just you know.
I'm really.
I mean, I know that I heard it a lot, and as he was working on this recipe and figuring out how to modify it.
I really am upset that people work so hard to make cooking hard.
Yes.
It's not hard. It's not supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be difficult. Any 10-year-old should be able to walk in the kitchen and make a cookie. This makes it seem like it's, unlocking diamond level 35 in some video game in order to get there, and it's not. It isn't, and that makes me angry when I see this, and I see it more and more, and it's always the same people, it's always the same publications, and it's not right. It makes me upset. But the cookie's fantastic.
So protest and make these cookies.
Uh-huh.
It's a sign of protest. Make
Uh-huh.
cookies the way you want them.
You should call it out. Anytime you see this, you should call it out and make them stop. Thanks for stopping by. See you
Sorry,
again soon.
I can't do Glen's stern face. I just can't pull it off. I tried.
That really is a good cookie, though.
I like how it's crunchy on the outside, but still soft in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like this really nice combination.
Yeah.
We didn't have time to talk about the cookie though.
Without the histrionics, it's a great cookie.
Will you find another opportunity to use the word histrionics today?
Probably not.